There are moments in life when heaven seems to go silent, when people walk past you as though your presence carries no weight, when those you helped forget your name, and those you once stood beside now act as though you were never there. But what they do not see, what they cannot discern, is the quiet hand of divine timing working behind your obscurity. You are not being ignored, you are being hidden, you are not being overlooked, you are being preserved for a moment that has not yet arrived. There will come a day when the very ones who brushed you aside will look again. And this time, they will see the light of purpose shining through the very places they once dismissed. They will realize that the one they ignored was carrying something sacred, something appointed, something essential to their own journey. For when God shifts the season, everything changes. The voices that once silenced you will now seek your wisdom. The doors that once shut against you will swing open, not because of your striving, but because of divine reversal. This is the mystery of God's orchestration. He allows rejection to prepare you for revelation. He hides your worth until the world is ready to see it. So do not despise being unseen, for the same ones who ignored you will need you soon. And when that moment comes, it won't be about revenge or pride. It will be the unfolding of purpose, the fulfillment of prophecy, and the vindication of divine timing. There are seasons in life when rejection feels like a constant companion, moments when your efforts seem invisible, your words unheard, and your heart unacknowledged. You try your best, you pour yourself into what you believe you were meant to do, yet the world seems blind to your worth. It is in those quiet, lonely places that many people give up, thinking that being ignored means being unworthy, that being unseen means being forgotten. But what if the silence is not a punishment? What if it's a sign of preparation? What if the rejection is not a wall, but a bridge, one that leads from where you are to where you're meant to be? Every person who has ever walked into destiny has walked through a season of obscurity. Think about Joseph in the prison, David in the fields, Esther in the shadows of the palace. None of them began in the spotlight. Each of them was first hidden away, ignored by others, sometimes even betrayed by those closest to them. Yet in that hidden season, God was working behind the scenes, shaping them, refining them, and setting the stage for a moment when everything would shift. What looked like rejection was actually redirection. What felt like being forgotten was really the divine hand rearranging the pieces of a larger plan. Sometimes God will allow people to ignore you, not because you lack value, but because your value is too great to be revealed too soon. If you were seen before your time, the very ones who now ignore you might try to contain or control what God is building in you. So He conceals you. He allows the silence to surround you so that your spirit grows deeper roots. Roots that will hold strong when your season of recognition finally arrives. Just because you are not being applauded doesn't mean heaven isn't aware. The applause of man fades quickly, but the approval of God sustains eternally. There's something sacred about being unseen. It tests your motives. It asks the question, will you still serve even when no one notices? Will you still be faithful even when no one claps for you? Will you still believe in what you carry, even when no one seems to care? Because those are the questions that separate those who chase attention from those who carry anointing. God isn't raising you to impress people. He's raising you to impact lives. And impact often begins in isolation. The rejection you face today may be the very soil where your purpose begins to grow. People may ignore your words now, but there's coming a day when those same people will look back and realize that what you carried was truth. They remember how you stood firm when no one else believed. They'll see the fruit of your faithfulness and recognize that you were walking in something greater than their understanding. When your time comes, and it will come, you won't have to prove yourself. God himself will confirm you. The same voices that once dismissed you will speak of you with respect. The same hearts that once doubted you will turn to you for guidance. That's the power of divine timing. When it's not your time, nothing you do can force the door open. But when it is your time, nothing on earth can shut it. Seasons of rejection often precede seasons of recognition, because God is positioning everything perfectly. He allows certain people to overlook you because their eyes are not yet trained to see what He's placed in you. He allows certain opportunities to slip away because He's reserving you for something higher. What feels like being left out is often His way of making sure you're not stuck in something smaller than your calling. Sometimes we pray for elevation, but God answers by sending isolation. Because before you can handle visibility, you must first learn how to thrive in the shadows. It's in the silence that you develop character. It's in the waiting that you learn humility. It's in the unseen moments that you gain the strength to stand when the spotlight finally hits. You can't carry the weight of destiny if you haven't first endured the weight of rejection. One prepares you for the other. Think of the seed in the soil. Before it becomes a tree, it must first disappear into the dark. It's buried, forgotten, hidden from sight. But in that unseen place, it's breaking open, expanding, and preparing for life. That's what God does with you. He plants you in seasons of rejection so that you can grow without distraction. And when the time is right, the world sees the fruit, but they don't see the process that came before it. They don't know the tears, the prayers, the nights of wondering if you'd ever be noticed. But heaven saw it all, and heaven never forgets what it cultivates. So when you find yourself in a season where it feels like no one sees you, don't despair. Don't try to rush the process or demand recognition. Stay steady. Keep serving. Keep building. Keep believing. Because the same ones who look past you today will one day look for you tomorrow. Your silence now is not the end. It's the setup. God is writing a story where every rejection becomes part of your elevation, where every ignored effort becomes the reason you rise. Seasons of rejection are never wasted. They are the birthplace of recognition. What was once unseen will soon be undeniable. There comes a time in every journey when what seems like loss turns out to be divine strategy. We often mistake silence for absence and rejection for abandonment, but the truth is God is a master of reversals. He knows how to turn neglect into necessity, how to take what was once cast aside and make it the very thing that becomes essential. It's in the pattern of his divine nature to use what the world overlooks, to raise what others have buried, to crown what others have crushed. When people turn their backs on you, when they act like you don't matter, when they make you feel like your presence is insignificant, remember that you serve a God who specializes in turning the tables. Divine reversals are part of his design. When Joseph was thrown into the pit by his brothers, it looked like the end. To them, he was a dreamer who didn't deserve to be taken seriously. They sold him off, thinking they were erasing him from their story, but they didn't realize that they were only positioning him for his purpose. Years later, famine struck, and the same brothers who ignored him came knocking at his door, desperate for the help of the very man they had despised. That is the rhythm of divine reversal. God takes what man intends for harm and turns it into an avenue of destiny. The same pattern unfolds in our lives when we trust his timing. Sometimes God allows people to reject you because he is planning to reveal you in a way that will bring him glory, not you validation. If everyone supported you from the start, if everyone celebrated you immediately, you'd think your success came from their approval. But when you rise after being overlooked, when you shine after being rejected, there's no question who lifted you up. Divine reversals make sure that when the tables turn, everyone sees the fingerprints of God all over your story. We often pray for blessings, but rarely do we understand that blessings often arrive disguised as heartbreak. People walking away, opportunities closing, doors slamming shut. They look like losses, but they're actually movements in the symphony of divine reversal. What was once your rejection becomes your protection. What was once your isolation becomes your incubation. The moments that felt like endings are actually introductions to something greater. You were never being pushed away. You were being repositioned. There's a kind of peace that comes when you realize you don't have to chase anyone or prove your worth to be seen. God knows how to arrange circumstances so that those who once ignored you will have no choice but to recognize the grace that's been on your life all along. He will shift hearts, open eyes, and orchestrate situations until what was once overlooked becomes undeniable. The same ones who said you'd never make it will one day say, I always knew there was something special about you. But it won't be because you changed to fit their expectations. It will be because God revealed what he placed within you in his time. Divine reversals are rarely comfortable. They often begin in the valley, in moments of confusion, betrayal, and silence. But that's where transformation happens. God will take what was meant to humiliate you and use it to elevate you. He'll take the relationships that ended and use them to teach you endurance. He'll take the people who mocked you and turn them into witnesses of your breakthrough. It's not revenge, it's redemption. It's not payback, it's purpose. Because when he turns things around, it's not just about proving others wrong. It's about proving his sovereignty right. Think of David, forgotten in the field when Samuel came looking for a king. His own father didn't call him in. He wasn't even considered worthy of the lineup. But when God had chosen him, no amount of human ignorance could cancel divine intention. The oil would not flow until David stood before the prophet. That's how divine reversals work. The blessing won't move until the right person is in place. When it's your time, you won't have to fight for attention. The anointing will find you. It's easy to get discouraged when people overlook you, when your efforts go unnoticed, when your loyalty is repaid with silence. But that's exactly where God's design begins to unfold. He allows you to walk through those seasons so that when he brings you into recognition, you carry humility instead of bitterness. Because divine reversals are never about ego. They're about alignment. They remind you that God doesn't need anyone's permission to bless you. He can use the same people who rejected you as the very instruments to usher you into your next chapter. There's something poetic about how God writes these stories. He lets people walk out so you can learn to stand alone. He lets the spotlight move away so you can learn to glow without it. And then, when the appointed time comes, he calls those same people back, not so that you can boast, but so that his glory can be revealed through your eyes. The ones who dismissed you will need your wisdom. The ones who ignored your words will seek your counsel. The ones who laughed will listen. And through it all, you'll realize it was never really about them. It was always about him. So if you find yourself in a place where it feels like no one sees you, no one values you, no one believes in you, hold on. Because divine reversals don't happen in noise. They happen in stillness. They don't come through striving. They come through surrender. Let them ignore you. Let them underestimate you. Let them turn away. Because God is writing a turnaround so profound that when it unfolds, it will be clear to everyone that neglect was just the first chapter of necessity. The divine reversal is coming. And when it does, everything that once looked like loss will be revealed as part of the victory that was waiting all along. There are times when life feels like a collection of unanswered prayers, moments when doors close without explanation and silence stretches so long that you begin to wonder if heaven has forgotten your name. You do everything right. You give your best. You wait patiently. You remain faithful. Yet nothing seems to move. It's in these seasons that we must remember something powerful. Every silence, every closed door, and every moment of being dismissed carries a divine purpose. It may not make sense now, but in time, you will see that the pauses were never punishment. They were preparation. Sometimes God's greatest answers are hidden in his quietest moments. When he seems silent, he's not absent. He's working. He's aligning pieces you can't see, arranging circumstances you can't control, and protecting you from things you don't even know could harm you. We often interpret silence as rejection, but in reality, it's often God's way of saying, not yet. Because if he gave us everything we wanted, when we wanted it, we would never grow into the strength needed to sustain it. The delay is not denial. It's divine timing in motion. Think about Noah. For years, he built an ark under clear skies, surrounded by mockery and misunderstanding. The rain didn't come immediately, yet his obedience continued. Each day of silence was not wasted. It was forming endurance, teaching trust, and shaping faith. When the storm finally came, the same silence that once tested him became the reason he survived. The lesson is simple but deep. God uses silence to shape strength. He uses waiting to deepen wisdom. He uses being ignored to cultivate identity that is not dependent on validation. Closed doors are the same. They sting, they confuse, and they sometimes feel unfair. But not every closed door is meant to break you. Some are meant to protect you. You might think you're missing out, but what you're really missing is destruction disguised as opportunity. God sees what's ahead, the intentions of people, the traps of the enemy, the timing that isn't yet right, and out of mercy, he shuts the door. When he closes something, it's never to punish you, but to preserve you. You may cry over what didn't work out, but one day you'll look back and realize that his no was the most loving answer you could have received. When you're dismissed or overlooked, that too carries a purpose. Being ignored can feel like one of the deepest wounds a person can experience, especially when you've poured your heart into something or someone. But even that is sacred ground. When people fail to see your worth, it teaches you to find your value in God's eyes rather than theirs. It refines your motive. Are you doing what you do to be seen by man or to be faithful before God? Sometimes he allows others to overlook you so that you can discover who you truly are without their applause. Because if you learn to stand firm when nobody notices, you'll be unstoppable when they finally do. There is also mystery in how God times his responses. You may think you're ready for the blessing, but he sees the details, the unseen cracks in your foundation, the unhealed wounds that could sabotage your breakthrough. His waiting is mercy, not neglect. He waits until your character can carry what your heart has been praying for. He waits until the season around you is aligned with the season within you. And when that alignment comes, everything that once seemed delayed will suddenly move at a divine pace that no human effort could have achieved. We live in a world that hates waiting. We want everything instantly. Success, recognition, relationships, fulfillment. But heaven doesn't operate on human schedules. God is not in a hurry because what he's building in you takes time. The silence is the forge where faith is refined. The waiting is the soil where patience grows. The dismissal is the wind that teaches you to bend without breaking. Each of these moments, though painful, are threads being woven into a story that will make sense only when viewed from eternity's perspective. Even Jesus faced silence. When he stood before Pilate, mocked and accused, heaven didn't intervene with thunder or miracles. It was quiet. But that silence wasn't abandonment. It was fulfillment. The silence before the resurrection was necessary for the glory that followed. The same pattern continues in our lives. The quiet spaces between promise and fulfillment are where trust is tested, where hope is stretched, and where faith matures. You might not understand why certain doors have stayed closed or why certain people have walked away. But if you could see what God is protecting you from, you would thank Him for every closed opportunity. If you could see what He's preparing you for, you would understand why the silence had to last as long as it did. Every unanswered prayer, every ignored effort, every moment of uncertainty, they are all part of a divine rhythm that leads to revelation. So when you find yourself in the stillness, don't lose heart. Don't misinterpret God's quiet as disinterest. The potter works best in silence. The sculptor does his most intricate carving when the clay is still. And the gardener knows that seeds only grow in darkness. Your silence is sacred, your rejection is redirection, and your waiting is working. Every closed door, every quiet day, every overlooked moment is holding purpose you can't yet perceive. And when the time comes, when heaven finally opens its mouth to speak, you'll see that nothing was wasted. That the silence, the waiting, and the rejection were all threads in the masterpiece of your destiny. There's something deeply humbling about realizing that the people who once dismissed you, overlooked you, or spoke lightly of your name are actually part of the story that God is writing for your becoming. Sometimes the greatest lessons in life are not learned through the applause of friends, but through the silence of those who never believed in you. The ones who doubted you, who questioned your worth, who thought you were too ordinary or too flawed, they unknowingly become participants in your preparation. They play their part in shaping your endurance, sharpening your focus, and strengthening your spirit. What they meant for harm, God uses as a tool for molding. What they tried to minimize, God magnifies through grace. Every great destiny carries the fingerprints of rejection. Look through the pages of history and you'll find that the people God raised up were never the ones everyone expected. Joseph was mocked by his brothers. David was forgotten by his father. Moses was doubted by his own people. Each one faced the sting of being underestimated. But each one also discovered that rejection has a way of refining purpose. It pushes you closer to the voice of God and further from the noise of human opinion. Because when people overlook you, you're forced to anchor your identity in something deeper, in who God says you are, not in what others think you are. There are people in your story who have misunderstood you, maybe even mistreated you. They saw your weakness, but not your strength, your failure, but not your faith, your mistakes, but not your potential. And yet, without realizing it, they became the very reason you grew stronger. Their disbelief pushed you to trust God more deeply. Their silence drove you to pray harder. Their rejection became the very fire that purified your motives. Every wound they gave you was a classroom in disguise, teaching you endurance, teaching you humility, teaching you how to keep walking, even when the crowd isn't cheering. It's hard to see it in the moment, but there is divine purpose even in the actions of those who look down on you. Sometimes God allows you to be surrounded by daughters so that you'll learn to stand on your own feet. He allows their words to sting, not to destroy you, but to toughen your spirit. Because if you ever want to rise high, You must first learn to stay steady when others don't believe in you. The disbelief of others becomes a kind of sacred pressure, uncomfortable but necessary to form strength within you that comfort never could. The people who walked away taught you how to walk alone. The ones who underestimated you taught you how to rely on God's estimation. The ones who ignored you gave you the gift of solitude, and in that solitude you found your voice. You discovered who you were without the noise of their validation. You realized that your worth doesn't shrink because someone else failed to see it. It was there all along, waiting for the right season to be revealed. God has a way of turning the whispers of mockery into the melodies of testimony. Even the negative words spoken over your life are not wasted. When people said you wouldn't make it, heaven heard it as a prophecy of what you would overcome. When they doubted your calling, heaven used it as fuel to prove his power through you. The same mouths that once belittled you will one day testify of your breakthrough. They won't even understand how it happened, how the one they dismissed became the one God elevated. But that's the beauty of divine orchestration. God uses even the resistance to build your resilience. You see, if everyone believed in you from the start, you'd never learn to depend on God. You'd begin to think that favor was earned through popularity. But when people reject you and yet you still rise, you know it wasn't their approval that lifted you. It was God's hand. That's why sometimes he allows misunderstanding to surround your calling. He allows you to be doubted so that when he finally brings you into the place of purpose, all glory points back to him. It's never about proving your worth to them. It's about proving his faithfulness through you. In truth, the people who once looked down on you are not your enemies. They are unknowing instruments of your growth. Their dismissal was your discipline. Their betrayal was your training ground. They played their part, even if they never knew they were part of something divine. God uses both friends and critics to shape destiny. Some water you with kindness, others prune you with pain. But both are needed for growth. Both play a role in the garden of your becoming. And one day, those same people who once looked at you with disbelief will see what God has done in your life. They'll see how the one they ignored became a vessel of purpose. How the one they dismissed became a testimony of grace. They'll see that what they counted out was exactly what heaven had counted in. But by then, your heart will have changed. You won't feel bitterness or pride, only gratitude. Because you'll understand that their rejection was never personal. It was providential. They weren't blocking your destiny. They were helping you find it. The people who once looked down on you unknowingly prepared you for where you are going. They toughened your spirit, refined your faith, and forced you to depend on something greater than their opinion. They taught you that you can't build your purpose on the foundation of people's approval. You must build it on the solid ground of God's truth. And when you finally step into the fullness of your calling, you'll realize that every look of doubt, every word of dismissal, every moment of being overlooked, it all carried a secret purpose. They didn't know it, but they were helping to shape the person God was always calling you to become. When destiny calls, everything changes. The atmosphere shifts, the order of things rearranges, and suddenly what was once ignored becomes necessary. There comes a moment when God moves in such a way that even those who never saw your worth begin to recognize that you carry something they need. It's not pride, it's not revenge, it's divine fulfillment. The same ones who dismissed you will one day seek the very thing you were carrying all along. They won't be coming because of who you become in their eyes, but because of what God placed within you that can no longer be denied. There's a season when you walk unnoticed, when you serve faithfully in the background, when your words fall on deaf ears and your gifts seem to have no place to land. But in that unseen season, God is planting seeds deep within you: wisdom, character, patience, and understanding. He's preparing you not just to be needed, but to be ready when you are, because destiny has a specific timing. It doesn't respond to popularity, it responds to preparation. You can't skip the quiet years, the seasons of obscurity, or the long nights of wondering why nobody recognizes your effort. Those are the very seasons that ensure when your moment comes, you will have the maturity to handle it with grace. Think about Joseph again, the one who was sold, forgotten, and imprisoned. He was the dreamer no one believed, the brother nobody valued. But when famine struck, when crisis came, when Egypt and the surrounding nations were desperate for answers, the same ones who ignored his dreams now needed his wisdom. His voice, once silenced, became the only one that mattered. That's how destiny works. When it's time, even your past pain becomes a platform for purpose. The tables turn not through human power, but through divine alignment. God orchestrates need in such a way that what he placed in you becomes essential to the very people who once doubted you. The waiting seasons are never wasted. When you feel overlooked, God is refining the treasure within you. When you feel ignored, he's polishing your gifts in secret. When no one listens, he's teaching you the sound of his voice above all others. Because when destiny calls, you can't afford to be distracted by the opinions of men. The ones who once dismissed you will need you, yes, but by the time they do, your heart will have changed. You won't respond with arrogance or anger. You'll respond with grace, because by then you'll understand that it was never about them needing you. It was about God fulfilling his word through you. Destiny has a way of revealing truth. It uncovers what was hidden, exposes what was ignored, and reverses what was misjudged. There's a sacred irony to how God works. He will let people walk away from you so they can later witness your rise, not to embarrass them, but to reveal his glory. The same people who didn't have room for you will one day realize they can't move forward without what you carry. But when that moment comes, it won't feel like triumph. It will feel like purpose. You'll recognize that what you endured, what you survived, what you overcame was all leading to this moment of divine necessity. When destiny calls, it doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see them. You start to understand that their rejection wasn't cruelty. It was construction. Their absence made room for God's presence. Their doubt forced you to build faith. Their silence became the backdrop for God's voice. Everything begins to make sense in reverse. Every delay, every dismissal, every season of being unseen. You start to see that what felt like being forgotten was actually the hand of God preserving you for your appointed time. There's a strange beauty in divine timing. For years, it may feel like your prayers are falling into empty air. You give, you serve, you love, and nothing seems to move. But then suddenly, in a single moment, everything shifts. People start to call your name, doors open that were once sealed shut, opportunities appear out of nowhere. And you realize it wasn't sudden at all. It was the quiet buildup of years of unseen faithfulness, finally meeting divine timing. That's the moment when those who ignored you begin to seek you, not because of who you've become, but because of what you've been carrying all along. And when they come, your heart will remember the nights you cried alone, the days you wanted to quit, the prayers whispered in the dark. But instead of resentment, there will be peace. Because purpose has a way of healing what pain once broke. You'll see their need, not their neglect. You'll understand that God didn't raise you up to prove them wrong. He raised you up to show them what's possible when His hand is on a life. Destiny doesn't call you to revenge. It calls you to restoration. It calls you to show the world what grace looks like when heaven fulfills its word. The truth is, the same ones who ignored you were never your enemies. They were part of your preparation. Their rejection was the mirror that revealed where your faith truly rested. Their silence became the test that proved whether you were living for applause or for purpose. And when the time comes and their need meets your calling, it won't be about winning or losing. It will be about the fulfillment of something far greater than human pride, the manifestation of divine purpose. So yes, there will come a day when the same ones who ignored you will need you. But when that day arrives, you won't need validation from them, because you'll already be standing in the fulfillment of what God promised. The silence, the rejection, the being overlooked, all of it was leading to that moment. And when destiny calls, it will not only vindicate you, it will glorify the God who was working behind the scenes the entire time.